All right, folks, it is 12:05, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. If anybody does come into the waiting room and I'm presenting, just quickly into the chat, just say, "Hey, listen, someone's trying to get in." I don't know if any of y'all would be able to see that, but if you do, just let me know. That would be great. All right, so today's presentation is going to be on creating a thesis statement. It's part of the Writing Wednesday Skillshop series presented monthly by Miami-Dade College. And with that, let's get right into it. So just to confirm, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Beautiful. All right, so creating a thesis statement. The thesis statement, of course, is the most integral portion of the writing prompt. It's going to tell us what we're writing about, it's going to highlight our points. In many ways, it acts as a brief menu, so to speak, as to what exactly is going to be the topic of the paper. What is the reader going to be consuming? So, what is a thesis? Again, usually a sentence near the beginning of your paper that presents your argument to the reader. The rest of your paper gathers and organizes supportive evidence. So when developing a thesis, one of the most integral things students you'd want to take into consideration is your thesis strong? And the way to do that is to run through this test. Do I answer the question? Rereading after writing a working thesis can help you fix an argument that misses focus. Your thesis needs to answer a question. Have I taken a position that others might challenge or oppose? If your thesis simply states facts that no one can disagree with, then it is not a thesis. Generally speaking, this is where you're going to see a lot of this in argumentative papers, also in persuasive papers, any type of essay where you are going to be presenting a topic, be it to convince someone to do something, to defend a particular position, you have to take a side. Oftentimes, the thesis is not a place of neutrality, it is a place of objectivity. You are making a choice, defending something, um, or vice versa, saying why something doesn't work or why it does work, so on and so forth. Is my thesis statement specific enough? Thesis statements that are often too vague, often don't have a strong argument. Avoid using loaded words such as good and strong unless you back it up with evidence. So you could say what you want to say. You just got to make sure that you can walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. In this case, walk the walk by presenting evidence to back up your claims. Does my thesis pass the so what test? If the content prompts readers to ask, so what? We don't have a compelling enough argument yet. Compelling is the key word here, folks. The argument needs to be something that draws in the attention of the reader. It needs to make the reader want to stay and effectively look for more, keep flipping under those rocks, see what exactly it is that you are presenting to them and why they should be interested in sticking through your entire presentation, or in this case, your paper. Does my essay support my thesis specifically and without going off on a tangent? This is a little bit too long to put into a phrasing, excuse me, but simply said, the thesis needs to be concise. It needs to have a point A and a point B. We need to be able to draw a line of objectivity in regards to what are you going to be talking about? What are you presenting to us? If your thesis goes in all different directions, much like a interstate highway map, so to speak, you are going to lose track of the reader. The reader is going to be wondering, well, is he talking about this? Are they talking about this here? Are they talking about this point? You want to keep your reader focused. You want to keep your reader engaged. Present to them a compelling argument that is easy to follow and is not going to lead them in 50 different directions. Does my thesis pass the how and why test? Avoid making your thesis too open ended. We need to be grounded by narrow and specific enough topic that you've ideally done research on first before even starting to draft your thesis to get to this point of narrowing your argument and subject. Very simply put, the things that we write about best are the things that we know about first. You know, if you come into writing an essay on shipbuilding, but you have never built a single ship in your life, you've never done research on shipbuilding, you have no association whatsoever with the shipbuilding process. This will likely be a paper that is not going to be easy for you to write. And when something is difficult for you to construct, folks, It's going to be reflected in the writing. It's going to be reflected in how you present the information. You know, if you are passionate about something, a topic, a concept, a subject, you're going to write. Your passion is going to speak through your writing. Your writing is going to demonstrate to the reader this writer knows the subject well, and it's evident based on the verbiage that they use, how they structure their sentences, the points that they line up. Knowing what it is you're going to write about and having a foundation on it is very important, especially if then you're going to be presenting this topic to somebody else. Make sure no one's coming. All right. So, what is a thesis statement? The main the main five who cues are always helpful to ask yourself to sparse out the specifics. We're going to talk about the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how. Very much like a search warrant, a thesis needs to be very specific. It's got to tell us exactly who we're discussing, what is the subject, when is this particular uh, setting or story taking place, where is it taking place, and how are you going to present the information? How are you going to defend your argument? How are you going to uphold your stance? So let's ask ourselves a couple questions. Did your professor provide you with a prompt? Your thesis statement responds to the questions the prompt explores, a question or topic. Are you writing about a controversy? Your thesis statement will make a claim, usually in favor or against, very much so in an argumentative essay. Were you given a topic to write about? Your thesis statement is a roadmap for the paper. It tells the reader what to expect, very much like a menu when you go to a restaurant. You don't know that the cook behind the kitchen is going to serve you something that is going to be to your liking. You have to rely on a description and you have to rely on your own imagination for the most part to determine what exactly it is that you're going to be receiving, unless, of course, you have an illustration in front of you. Were you asked to analyze or interpret? Your thesis statement offers a way to understand the topic and talk and the connections you will talk about in the essay. So you want to create those bridges. Is there a difference here? And it's the same thing based on your assignment. If you're writing about a controversy, you're going to want to establish a clear in favor or against. If you were given a topic to write about, you want to also be as clear as possible. If you're asking us to analyze or to interpret, you're going to want to establish those bridges and connections that are going to be crucial in presenting the information and conveying it across. So there are generally three types of papers in the college. You have the analytical essay, it breaks down an idea, presents an evaluation for the reader, causes the reader to really think about what's being put in front of them. The expository explains something to the reader, and the argumentative. The paper makes a claim and provides evidence to convince the reader. So in setting up your introduction, it is a three-step process. You're first going to want to hook the reader, intrigue the reader, similar to one casting a line into the open sea. Ideally, your goal is to catch a fish. In this case, you want to hook the reader. You want to catch the reader. How are you going to catch the reader? You're going to present them with supporting content. You're going to give them something that is going to make them want to follow through with the topic. And of course, you're then going to present the thesis statement. Give us your argument. Are you in favor of the topic? Are you against the topic? Are you going to have us analyze the topic? So on and so forth. So here's an example. Should vaccinations be compulsory? Vaccines should be a personal choice. Vaccines should be required for the sake of public health. In this instance, we have 2 points. The first one is a stance. Vaccines should be required. Vaccines should be a personal choice. This is going to be someone who is going to convince us as to why vaccines should be a personal choice. And ideally, vaccines should be required for the sake of public health. Same thing. You have to convince the reader that this is the appropriate stance to take. You are defending this point of view. A good thesis statement will evolve. Editing is a very big part of the writing process. You know, you are going to be looking over your work and rereading your work, going back to your work. And as you do this, you're going to see things that you may have skipped over the first time that you'd like to go back and address the second time. So the good thesis statement is always going to evolve. As you gather your evidence, your thesis statement may change, and that's perfectly acceptable because as you continue to pick up new bits of information, you're going to refine and mold this thesis statement. In many ways, you can think about it as someone who is, well, effectively creating a piece of art. As they're creating this piece of art, they're going to look at the designs, they're going to look at the intricacies, and they're going to see, okay, where can I put this curvature? Where can I put this specific piece of design? Where can I, add a splash of color? It's the same exact thing with the thesis. What points can I use? What types of vocab can I utilize to get my point across? How can I hook the reader? And as you gather new information, this is going to change. A good thesis statement is specific and confident. You should not be including your own opinion, an I statement, and an individualized perspective, your own perspective. So here's an example. Weak thesis statement. I believe the Second Amendment is very good. A strong thesis statement. The founders created the Second Amendment so the people could defend themselves against tyranny. So, can anybody tell me what is the fundamental difference between, or better said, make it easier. Why is this considered weak and why is this one considered strong? That was
Uh,
fast. All right, Gabriel.
is it because the first one's weak because it uses the pronoun I?
Okay, correct. That's a big part of it. What else makes this a weak thesis statement?
I think I got it.
All right. What do you
It's
got for
not
us, Gab?
it's not factual, but it's very opinionated in the sense that it presents the person's opinions, but it doesn't like present facts. Like, is it not very objective? I guess you could say.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. All right, and folks, welcome. If you're just joining us, please, if you can put your ID numbers in the chat, that would be great. That would be very helpful. So, yes, to piggyback on Mrs. Soler Lopez's point, indeed, this first statement, I believe the Second Amendment is very good. Well, what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily tell us anything. First off, you're giving us your perspective, as Ms. Soledad Lopez pointed out. You're not supposed to do that in the thesis statement. And secondly, all you're telling us is that you believe the Second Amendment is very good. It's grateful that you believe the Second Amendment is very good. However, you have to do more to convince us as to what exactly are you arguing here? What are you presenting forward? Not to mention, in referencing back to one of the earlier slides, I believe it was this one. Okay, right here. Is my thesis statement specific enough? Avoid using loaded words such as good or strong unless you back it up with evidence. Simply saying the Second Amendment is good is a loaded statement. It doesn't tell us what makes it good or vice versa. It doesn't the writer, isn't presenting to us what exactly affirms this school of belief. When you get to the strong thesis, the founders created the Second Amendment so the people could defend themselves against tyranny. This is a much stronger statement. What makes this statement stronger compared to the first one?
Wait,
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, please?
Sure thing. So what makes the strong so the founders created the Second Amendment so the people could defend themselves against tyranny. What makes this a strong thesis statement? What makes it strong?
It's objective.
Right.
wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you use like the weak thesis statement, then after that after that, what you call it? You put a bunch of reasons why you think that, like in the introduction paragraph, and then you elaborate that in the body paragraphs. That still won't work?
No, because the thesis statement in general is still going to be too vague. You're just simply telling us it's very good. The key thing, and that's a good point that you bring up, because one could argue, yes, if I just present you something that's weak at the beginning, but then I provide you with a series of strong points, well, where is the issue with that? The problem is the thesis statement at the very beginning is supposed to hook in the reader. You could have paragraphs loaded with really good pieces of contextual information, Mr. Rodriguez. But if the thesis statement itself, the first thing the reader is going to come across is weak on appearance, you lose any potential of the reader wanting to stick through for the rest. In many ways, the famous TV phrase, "but wait, there's more," presents itself once you have already given something to the reader that makes them want to see more. And that is the main point. Since the thesis statement is going to be presented is the first thing the reader is going to come across, making it strong is going to give a good first impression, very much like an employer. If you go in for a hiring interview and you have a weak interview, you could be a phenomenal candidate with boatloads of experience. But at the end of the day, the first thing that we see is going to be what you first present to us. And if we don't see anything worthwhile, what what makes us conceive that we can continue onward and something somehow is going to improve? But that is a very good point. What makes the strong thesis statement strong also is that there is a reasoning behind it. The founders created the Second Amendment so the people could defend themselves against tyranny. This thesis statement presents an argument. It presents that the founders created this amendment in the auspice that the people could use it to defend themselves. It's not telling us whether it's good or it's bad. It's merely presenting to us a point. You can either agree with this point or you can disagree with this point. We can elaborate on this point through the use of textual evidence, or we can try to convince you on this point. So there's a variety of ways that we can interpret this, but simply starting out strong already sets the table for a good rest of the paper. I use the restaurant concept because I think it's the most applicable. A strong start to a good meal makes for an overall successful dining experience. If you go to any establishment and you're having a three-course meal and the first of those three courses ends up being poor, mentally speaking, you're thinking, "Oh wow, how is the second and third one going to be if this first one wasn't even successful? What else are they going to give to me? Why should I even bother staying through for the rest? I'm concerned now." And that's why you always want to start strong because it leaves a good first impression. A good thesis is not only an announcement of the subject, there needs to be more information and specifics. So here we have another one. My subject is the incompetency of the Supreme Court compared to the Supreme Court made a mistake when it ruled in favor of George W. Bush in the 2000 election. So, let's analyze this for a second. What is the problem with this first one?
The problem is that you're not presenting any points. You're just stating something, but you're not expanding it.
Exactly. Very good. It's not specific. It's not giving us any information. What about the second one? What does the second one do that the first one lacks, that the first one doesn't?
It's both factual and non-personalized.
Right. The other thing is that it presents to us, very simply, evidence. It gives us evidence. The first one says, my subject is the incompetency of the Supreme Court. So we know that the subject is going to be the court, and specifically its incompetence. However, you have to give us an example of this incompetence. You have to demonstrate how this institution of government is acting incompetently. The second one says the Supreme Court made a mistake when it ruled in favor of George W. Bush in the 2000 election. We know that the subject of this paper is going to be a critique of the Supreme Court. generally a calling out of the competency of the Supreme Court through its ruling in the 2000 election in favor of George W. Bush. The first one tells us, I'm going to look at the incompetency of the court. The second one shows us an example of incompetency without referencing just simply that we're going to talk about incompetency. Specifics are really what reinforces a lot of good writing. You know, if you are writing a paper on electric vehicles, my subject is electric vehicles are the future. Okay, well, that's wonderful. I'm glad you believe that. But you need to tell us a little bit more. My subject is electric vehicles are the future because they, don't consume gasoline. So therefore they are better for the environment, one could argue. Electric vehicles are the future because they require less portions for manufacturing. I don't know. But the point is, you give us reinforcements to the argument. If the subject is going to be the Supreme Court and its incompetency, you have to give us an example of this incompetency. Otherwise, it reeks more of a rant rather than an essay. So just some quick tips for y'all. A topic is not a thesis. A thesis statement should be argumentative. A thesis does not include an opinion. When we were talking about the Second Amendment is very good, I believe, that's an opinion. That's an opinion. Your thesis statement is not going to include an opinion. Your evidence can include, information that sways members of the audience one way or another, and through this we will differentiate what types of opinion you have on the topic. However, this presentation of information is being done to sway the member of the audience without the member of the audience knowing explicitly where the writer stands on that issue. And it's very much like journalism. A journalist has to present clear and concise information, but the journalist's opinion is irrelevant to the information that is being presented in a perfect world. Okay, so here's the general template for how a thesis statement should look like. At first glance, the issue of blank seems to be blank. However, after a closer investigation, researchers have determined, so on and so forth. You start off with a hook, historical information, or a qualification that gets readers interested in your topic, mentioned from the very get-go, immediately. What are some examples of good hooks? How can we successfully hook a reader into a paper?
With a quotation?
Right. Okay, that's good. A quotation. What are some other examples that we could use to hook a reader in?
With a saying?
Right. You have quotations, you have sayings. I think someone's joining into the...
I have a question.
Yes.
May I have this presentation in my email address, please?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll be sending it to... In fact, if anybody wants this presentation, I'll be more than happy to send it to you once the skillshop is over. But I have it here in my notes to send it to you, Gabriella.
Okay, I also have a second question
Sure thing.
before we go on. Is it possible that we go over a paper that I need to give for a creative writing class after the meeting's over, or like later in the day?
Yeah, sure thing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. All right, so Yuri Levy, thank you for joining us. If you can put your ID number in the chat, that would be really beneficial. It allows us to record attendance and
Got it,
document
will
who-
do.
Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, so going back to this. So Gabriella mentioned it perfectly. You have quotes, you have, sayings. You can also use statistics, facts and figures, hard facts, cold figures in particular. are the ones that you want to really present to the audience. Numbers that are going to stand out. These types of pieces of information act as attention getters. They want to draw the reader in. Effectively, again, you want to hook the reader to what it is you're talking about. Historical information as well. All of these things, any sort of qualification that gets the reader interested in the topic is going to be beneficial for the success of the paper. So here's a general template. Ask a question. Create a declaration. List some reasons. Combine to create a thesis statement. So we'll pose a question to the reader. We'll declare something, make a statement about it. We'll give the reasons why we made such a declaration. And then we are going to combine to create a thesis statement. All right, so quickly we're going to now go into outlining. Does anyone have any questions related to the thesis statement? Anything you'd like me to go back over? Anything I can be clearer on?
It was perfectly clear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Let's keep going. All right, so today we're going to be going over the research paper outline. So what is it exactly? It's going to be a short plan of your paper, a list of all the ideas that you need to cover your paper, a structuring of all the ideas and arguments from the start that will make sure you cover all the things while writing. So in many ways, it is an organizational sheet. It's going to tell us it's going to tell you specifically what it is you're going to write about, how do you plan to present the information. That's very important. And also what pieces of information you're going to want to use. All information is valuable, but not everything that is valuable is going to be, or better said, everything that is valuable to a certain degree is information, but not all information is going to be valuable for the sake of your paper. And this often happens to a lot of writers. We will be very tempted to plug in as much detail as possible in an effort to give the reader as much of an insight into the topic that we need. When in reality, we end up creating an alphabet soup of different topics and subpoints that make it difficult to follow. You don't want to inundate your reader with a truckload of information, especially when this information is not going to really contribute to the core of the argument. So why do I need an outline for my paper? Oftentimes, a lot of students will ask, why do I got to organize the paper? Why do I have to go through this pre-stepped process? Why can't I just sit down on my computer, open Microsoft Word, and start writing whatever it is that's on my mind? Well, outlining helps you to organize your ideas. Organization, folks, is critical. In fact, the essay structure is inherently based on organization. If your paper looks like a hot mess, your professor's not going to read it, the reader's not going to read it, and even you probably will not want to read it because you're not going to be able to distinguish where your ideas are flowing. It'll help you understand the information flow. There is nothing worse than writing a bunch of information only to not have it make any sense. That is a waste of time and a waste of effort. It will help you structure your information in an appropriate way. It will help you not to miss any important information while writing. A lot of these things have to deal with structure and organization, folks. The essay is like a skeletal system. Every piece of the skeleton is important in keeping the human body operating and moving and upright in the way that it is. Well, a paper is the same thing. The body paragraphs are the middle, and every good paper has a foundation that keeps it grounded together. It will help you know where to find the piece of information you might need when presenting your ideas. This is very big for research. An outline will let you finish your work faster. Folks, in academia, one of the things you can always save a lot of is time and is money. And any time you have the opportunity to get something done more efficiently, that is definitely going to rid you of a few headaches, especially if this is your first semester. You're early into your college career and you plan to go into a graduate program or you plan to go into a 4-year program at the university. Being able to do things efficiently and do them well is going to be integral to your success. So some of you may have seen this before. The outline structure example is traditional. The introduction, sentence to get the attention of your readers, one sentence thesis statement. In journalism, we often call this a byline. Generally, it's about 35 words, 1 to 2 sentences max. For the thesis statement, it's going to be the same concept, 1, 2 sentences max at a time. The body paragraph, first, second, and third main ideas. Oftentimes, I will refer to this as the hamburger model. And you may have heard about this if you were in grade school, but let me see if I can just give you a quick demo here. Let's see. Okay, I guess this one works. All right. Now you might be asking yourself, why did he just put this photo up there? Well, I'll explain something to y'all. Look at this burger. It looks appetizing, although it's probably very vegetarian based. No offense. But yeah, the burger is made of different components. You have a bun at the top, a bun at the bottom. But at the end of the day, folks, what people are really interested in is what's in the middle. This is where you have your toppings. It's also where you have your protein. Everything else is just a bunch of carbs. When you're writing an essay, you're going to take the exact same type of approach. The bun is the first thing that a person witnesses when they are going to consume this type of sandwich, or any type of sandwich in particular. It introduces us to the meal, but it is the interior, the patty specifically, in this case, the guac or whatever it is that they have in here, that is going to set up the substance of the actual essay. And you can take this into writing as well. Your thesis statement and your intro are going to be the bun. Your first body paragraph, your second body paragraph, your third, and then your conclusion. And the conclusion is a recap of what you said at the beginning. Hence why you have another piece of bread at the bottom. Out of the points here, which point do you think is going to be the most important? The first, the second, or the third?
Is it the first one?
Close. It's going to be the second. The second point is the beef of the patty. This is, if you go to a restaurant, this is what folks asked to be cooked a certain way. This is what folks are looking for when they look for temperature, when they look for flavor. In the case of the essay, the second point is going to be the strongest. It's going to be the beefiest. It's going to be the point that effectively resonates the most with the reader. That's why it's going to be right smack in the middle of the two subpoints and nicely compressed between the thesis statement at the top and the conclusion at the bottom. And then these leaves at the top, minor details that writers will throw in just for context. All right, so we'll cut this out, and then we'll move on. But wait, there's more. As we said that earlier. There's a lot of other ways that you can visualize the outlining of the essay. This is what I would call the temple model. You have a roof, introduction, thesis statement, opening sentence, the top part of the structure. Then the house is being held by columns, supporting evidence, and more supporting evidence. And then you have the conclusion at the very bottom that acts as the foundation. Every good house, every good structure needs a foundation. If you have a weak foundation, your house is going to shake. And when it shakes, you risk it crumbling. Additionally, there is the more worksheet-based outlining example, as I would like to call it. This is a little more detailed. You have a quick title up here, followed by the thesis statement, The thesis statement is going to circulate into is going to percolate into 4 points, and then from those 4 points, you're going to add various pieces of supporting detail to affirm those points, and then they're all going to filter nicely into your conclusion. And I will be sending all of this to every one of you, so you know you'll have this for your records. And lastly, there is the circular model, and this is a model that is very popular in elementary school. The Venn diagram, in particular, that's what we call this. So you're going to have one subject A on one side, subject B on another, and you're going to write the similarities in the middle. And the beauty of the Venn diagram is you can do 2 circles, 3 circles. I've seen some folks do 4 circles. So you can pretty much continue to grow this model of outlining as you get further and further into your paper. All 3 of these models, whether it be the hamburger that we saw, the temple model, the more traditional worksheet model, all of these are clear examples or clear methods of outlining a paper and laying down the steps for creating an effective thesis statement. All right, folks, so that's going to bring us to the end of our presentation. Generally, these last for an hour. However, this is a very short PowerPoint, and given that a lot of you all are probably familiar with the thesis statement process, this information should be not novel to you, but more of a refresher. However, if you do want more resources on writing and writing related resources while at Miami-Dade College, you can always visit your local MDC library, your campus MDC library, or whichever one of the various college libraries throughout the county. The MDC LibGuides page also provides quick access on pre-writing and revision and structuring and organization. And I will show you both of these pages with the time that we have left. So let me put one up here. Okay. Put the other one up here.
This is a random question. Can you answer something about honor lock?
I could try, yeah.
Would you know how it works? Because I'm thinking of there's a midterm exam I gotta do, which is I went to the syllabus. It's like an essay where you have to write like 300 or 500 words, something like that. Do you know like how like an honor lock exam would work? I'm thinking of doing that because I can't drive, so thinking of doing like the exam remotely. So
Yeah. So the way that honor lock works is it's very much like um, lockdown browser, where you're going to have your screen locked down, and then you basically be answering the prompt or the exam within the very specific parameters. It's done so that students aren't tempted to go and cheat. Let me see. For example, log websites.
so what you call it? Basically like you go into honor lock, it opens up a new application and it locks in like it's kind of like I don't know, like running a different software or something.
Yeah, it's a hybrid proctoring model. So aside from a locking down of the browser, I believe you also are going to have a human proctor that is going to be monitoring you um, through the as you take the exam.
And can
However,
you take an exam at night or it has to be during the day?
that would probably be best with your professor because your professor might have specific times that you may be allowed to take the exam. I know at the graduate program that I'm attending, that that is the case. Professors will say you have between this hour and this hour to take the exam on this date at this time. So I would reach out to your professor for those specific pieces of information.
Because what you call it, the professor, I'm taking like a fully online class, so it look what you call on the syllabus. It just said the test will be open from the 22nd to the 29th. It didn't say
Okay.
anything about like dates or anything, so I'm not sure if it's like I can take it during the nighttime because I can't take it now because I'm at work. So
Right. I mean, it sounds like you have a week to take that exam.
so I'm just like wondering if I can like take it like during like the evening, like around 7.
Yeah, I don't see why. I don't see why not, Mr. Rodriguez. Again, I would confirm with the professor to see. However, if you are given a week to take the exam, I don't suppose that there would be specifically a time within that week that you have to take it, but rather just as long as you complete it within the 7 day span, you should be all right. But again, I would still go and speak with your instructor.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I have a question.
Sure thing.
So, when you were talking about the 3 points, it's I think it's more simple when you know the topic that you're gonna talk about. Like,
Hmm.
for example, right now I have an essay that I have to write that says re rewrite or revise your autobiography narrative. That to me, I feel like I'm challenge. I kind of have like is a challenge for me because I don't know how to start it. The middle, the second part, as you say, I think I can fill that in. But how can I start a narrative? How do like I need help with that? Sorry.
No, no, it's fine. It's okay. This is what we're here to do. Um, so you're writing a story about yourself? Well, you said autobiography. Yeah. Um, okay. So ideally, what I would say is it's very similar to the hamburger model. If identify some points, and this is, I think, where the challenge might come in. Identify some points that if someone were writing a book about you, you would want those points to be referenced. I'm not expecting you to summarize your whole life into a couple of pages, but if you can identify key moments, key circumstances, key events, so to speak, that you can then generate into sizable paragraphs, that would probably be the best approach.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yes. And then when I would write those, when I would write, I'll write it as I'm the one speaking.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You would. Yeah. One of the things, actually, and I'll share this with you folks. One of the things that you really want to interpret, that you really want to take into consideration as you're writing any paper, is ask yourself the following: if somebody was reading this to me, how would I want this to sound? If I was sitting in the audience and someone was given this prompt and they had to write it and then present it to me, and I had to sit here and listen through this, how would I want it to sound? What words would I want to be used? How would I want this specific point to be carried across? Oftentimes, when we place ourselves in the position of an audience member, we approach a variety of concepts differently because we're no longer seeing it from the top of the podium, but rather as someone who is absorbing the information. We are sponges to the flow of information that is being presented to us. And what we choose to absorb will determine whether or not we're genuinely interested in the topic. So that's a very big thing. Ask yourself, if I was in the audience and this topic was given to someone to write about, how would I want this topic to be presented to me? How would I want it to sound? And once you begin to really personalize the content, you will actually be really surprised at what you can come up with. Not related to English, but if any of you have not taken Florida Civic Literacy exam, one of the key things that I tell students when preparing for that exam is personalize the content. A lot of people around the world, much of society will tell you don't take it personally, don't take it personally. But oftentimes when it comes to academics, you should take it personally because if you personalize content, you establish relevancy. And if you can establish relevancy, you put in your brain, this means something to me. This makes sense to me. And therefore, I'm going to be able to read about it, talk about it, write about it in a way that is more conducive, in a way that other folks are going to be able to piggyback on what I'm trying to present to them. Okay, so let me quickly show you these pre-writing and revision tabs. And then we can pretty much wrap up.
Remember that we have to meet up.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Okay, so this is the first one. All right, so this first tab here, pre-writing and revision, presented by the Kendall Campus Academic Writing Support Lab. You can access this by going to the MDC LibGuides page, and I will show you all how to do that. So everybody should be seeing the Miami-Dade College main page. If you're not, just please let me know. But once you get to this page, you'll go to academics. You'll go down to libraries. Click on libraries. It'll bring you to this nifty page over here where it says, let me see, do we have it under LibGuides or do we have it under, okay, we do have it under LibGuides. You'll click on LibGuides. And then it'll bring you to this page that says learning resources, all guides by group, subject, by date, so on and so forth. You'll go down to English for academic purpose. Where do they have it laid out? Okay, here we go. My bad. Oh, can I access this? All right. So you'll go down to writing, citing, and research. And here you'll find a variety of different pages. Alternative search engines, APA citation style. This is very important when you start getting into APA papers in 1102. ENC 1101 composition for Professor Miranda. So a series of different writing pages and different writing subsections that you can work on. Yeah, give me like 2 seconds. Okay, so the writing, citing, and research section is going to tell you everything that you need. And then once you click on those LibGuide tabs, they will take you to where you got to go. So let's stop sharing that. We'll go back to the PowerPoint, and we'll pretty much be wrapped up for the day. And of course, folks, come visit us. Visit us in person, visit us online. We're open 7:30 to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Fridays, and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. So we are open 6 out of 7 days of the week. So if you can't meet us in person, definitely come meet us online. And this is for library hours across all Miami-Dade College campuses. Last but not least, we do have some more skill shops coming soon. Feel free to scan this QR code. If you're interested in seeing additional skill shops presented by the college, we present them generally on a weekly series. So Writing Wednesday, the Tech Tuesday, Research Thursday type of setup. I'll leave this up for a few seconds. Okay. And then before everyone can go, if you all can just fill out this Skillshop assessment survey, that would be great. Gives us necessary feedback so that we can construct these workshops in ways that cater to the needs of the students, but also make them more effective, more efficient, and just in general provides us with any feedback or tips that we could take into consideration as we go into future semesters. Now I'll leave this up for a couple of minutes for anybody who has any questions. And outside of that, it has been a pleasure working with you all. It's been a pleasure presenting this information. And I do thank you for your time.